Alright, so I recently finished my kinda first Ratchet and Clank game. I have played through Size Matters on PSP before, and I don't know, it was kind of meh, but it's a different development studio. This is the first time I'm playing one from the main Insomniac line of games. Going in, my expectations weren't super high because the only other couple games I played like this were Jak 2 and The Lost Frontier, which weren't any better than Size Matters. But luckily, this was the first time one of these games really clicked for me, and I really enjoyed it. The first thing I really wasn't expecting was the variety and creativity with all the different weapons you can get throughout the game. I mean, I guess there are some that are pretty similar, but they each still have at least a little bit of a different gimmick to them. And the game's upgrade system, which requires you to level up all the weapons, encourages you really to use all of them throughout your entire playthrough rather than just kind of picking your favorite or the most powerful one, which, I feel like it kept things pretty fresh and fun throughout, having that incentive to, just try different things. I did wind up playing through with a controller, which I was mixed about doing because with shooters, I need a mouse and keyboard. I don't perform as well or have as much fun with, dealing with a controller, but I decided to try it, see how it goes. I can always switch, and it wound up going pretty good. It almost reminded me of Splatoon, where the combination of aim assist as well as just general range of some of your different weapons in that, where you didn't need that complete on-the-point accuracy that I really need a mouse and keyboard for. The game has a good mix of linear and more open areas, and collectibles are done very, very well. This is kind of how I want to see other platformers do it, where if you're so close to something, it'll appear on your map, and towards the very end of the game, you get a treasure map which will just show everything. So when you're first going through and about to enter a new area, you can sort of double check and tie up those loose ends before you move on, which I think is perfect and does the main thing that I'm kind of critical with more recent games with, being to keep you in-game and not, going to a web browser to look up a guide if you're going for completion. The Clank puzzles and glitch sections were both pretty fun too. Sometimes you get sort of major side content like that and it doesn't hit, but this time, never overstayed its welcome and was a fun, change of pace or little break that didn't also feel too disconnected or out of place. Something that I really liked that wound up sort of biting me a little later, I'll get into that, but and this is normally not, a super big deal or anything, but it felt nice to finally, for the first time in how long, play a platformer that actually felt like it was pushing graphics and the hardware that was current at the time. Something that probably couldn't have also played on a PS3 or Xbox 360. Crash 4 is probably the closest recent one that I can think of that may have pushed things further than Nintendo could with their older platforms, but even then, this was kind of just next level and really fun to see. The reason I say, though, it was a bit of a double-edged sword was because I don't know why. I did a little research. I think it's an AMD issue, but the optimization was not good. Actually, this was sort of the last, this was maybe about halfway through the game, the footage in the background. And my game wound up freezing at a particular point at the very end of this section, and I wound up needing to lower my settings to make it through, and then I made it, to the next planet and made it through a decent chunk of that, but then another section kind of wound up doing the same thing, and it's just really frustrating, and I wound up having to lower the graphics to lower than my computer should have handled. Like, I was well within the recommended specs, which I would think would mean that you could run at max settings. Maybe I'm wrong at that. I normally just sort of leave the default settings, which was what was done here. So I could have maybe even have pushed things further than I was when they wound up freezing up. And it's just such a shame. And like I said, it's a known issue that I guess just was never properly patched out, I guess. I don't know. And it's concerning too, because I know Nixis or whoever did, I assume, port the game to PC. Like, I know they did a lot of the other Sony ports, like Horizon Forbidden West, Spider-Man. I know they also did a lot of the, I think, the Survivor trilogy Tomb Raider games. And it's just kind of concerning because, like I said, it wasn't a good job here, in my opinion. And knowing that there's other games I'm looking forward to playing that I may not be able to leave at default or max out if I decide to, because of potentially issues like I saw here. But, hopefully it's just a one-off. Keeping my fingers crossed. The last thing, one other complaint I want to give. Value is subjective, but I 100%ed this game in a little under 20 hours. This launched for a full premium $70. Don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun with the game, but that just seems kind of steep. Even 60 for, this short of a game, in my opinion. I feel like 40 to 50 as a base price would have been a bit more fair and reasonable, and I think I did get it on sale for about that amount, but yeah, I don't know if that's just something, like, I would expect this length from like a PS2 game, so I don't know if that's just sort of a way the series never really went too far past that era. We'll see. Once again, no big promises. I tend to get distracted and then sometimes not go back to things for much longer than I initially intended, but I would like to play one of the PS3 games in particular soon. Sort of see how that winds up stacking up to this. I assume that Size Matters was probably about the same, scope and features that you would have seen out of PS2, but I'm kind of curious as to what, in between PS3s could be, and this is another series that's, just kind of interesting, doing my proper start of things on the latest entry to sort of see, however way I wind up doing it, whether I just go in reverse order or I just do a random mesh, whatever I'm feeling like, how that sort of, winds up hitting compared to people who, played all the games in order, whether they grew up with it or just, going through it like that now. But I didn't feel like waiting with this one. I thought it looked pretty good. I remember they stressed it in some of their promo stuff, but the seamless transitions to some of the riffs for the, the bonus areas was pretty nice too. And yeah, I would recommend for, the right price if you're into platformers and such.